Look, there's my cat, Coco.
Hi everybody, this is Chris, also known as Cheap Ass DS. What we have here today, 2001 DRZ400S. We're going to explore the potential of the different settings on the stock DRZ400S forks in the front. On the back, I already have a 2003 series from the KLX400, but it's also known as the green DRZ, same bike. The back, I've already upgraded the shock to a newer model. The newer model has rebound adjustment on it, whereas the stock one did not. It also has a greater range of settings for the high-speed compression damping. I have the rear pretty much where I think I like it, so I'm not going to do any settings on the rear today. Front tire set at 15 pounds. The manual calls for 18, but if you ride up in the Northeast like I do woods riding primarily, you're going to encounter a lot of wet rocks, wet roots, sharp-edged rocks, a lot of up and down hills, a lot of slow going, really first and second gear work. I find that, and a lot of mud. A tire that's aired down grips better. For me, 15 is actually kind of on the high side for what I'd use this bike in the woods for. And that's really what I'm shooting for, is for suspension adjustments that work good over nasty, sharp-edged, steep bumps. So, what we're starting with first, oh, and by the way, the rear tire, 15 pounds on it. Manual calls for 18 on the front. Manual calls for 22 for driver alone, 25 loaded up with a passenger. With a really stiff carcass tire on there in the woods, that's just too much air. It's just too sharp, too slippery. So that's 15.5 pounds in the back, 15 in the front. Back tire is a Kenda Trackmaster 2 760. Front tire is an IRC TR8. Sorry about that. We have settings for compression, 14 clicks worth on the bottom. Settings for spring preload, about 16 turns worth. The manual calls for 1 through 5 lines showing on these. It's kind of useless. The lines are hard to see and they don't correspond with the amount of turns. So I've got it turned all the way in with the harshest preload. And the first run I'm going to take a series of runs on this little obstacle course that I've created here. And the idea is to show both at regular speed and maybe at some slowed down speed some of the weaknesses of the stock 2001 suspension. Another video that I'm going to make, maybe incorporate it with this one into a third video, is the new shocks that I've just purchased for this bike. I've got 2002S series forks, forks that have the rebound adjustment on them up at the top. This does not. This is a damper style fork, really much cheaper and a lot less adjustment and a lot less versatility than cartridge style fork. The 2002 model I have is the set of forks that I have is cartridge style. So you'll be able to see the comparison between the two with different settings. So, first setting, we have full preload adjustment on there. So that's as hard as it can go, strong preload. And I'm going to go softest, so basically no compression on here, the lowest possible compression damping. Lowest of the settings. And these are accessible just with a nice, not too large of a screwdriver head. Just turn it counterclockwise for soft, clockwise for hard. So I've got it in the lowest position. A little faster. Okay, so right there, you saw full preload on the shocks. You saw what happened. So, the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to take a run with the compression adjusters 1/3 of the way up. So for me, since there's 14 clicks, I'm going to just arbitrarily take the difference. We'll say 5 clicks up. So you can see that run did not go as well. I may have been a little harder on the gas, kicked some of the logs out of the way. However, it didn't feel as comfortable. And you saw that I slipped right off in one of those sections. So, still full preload, which ideally you think would be correct for a guy my weight, 240 plus pounds. Gonna go up in the compression now, from 5 clicks out full softs up to 10. There. To me, that felt like a little better control. I don't have any of the logs kicked out of place. Could be because they're settling in the soil better, I don't know. I believe I went at things a little bit slower. It still didn't feel fully comfortable to me, but it did seem better than run number 2 that I took with the 5 clicks out. So what I'm going to be trying now is full compression setting, so all 14 clicks out. Oh, good. I don't know how that's going to look on replay, but to me it felt really good. It felt more comfortable, and it felt very controlled and planted. So you can see that while riding slow in the woods, although you think you might want something a little cushier, having that compression all the way up does give you better control. What I can't speak for is how this would happen after like an hour worth of hot riding. This is fresh fluid in there, fresh 5-weight fluid, right at the factory specs, which is 165 millimeters from the top, or 6.5 inches from the top, brand new fluid. Original springs. Previous owner had race tech springs in there, they seemed too hard to me. Might try them again in new shocks, hope to see what happens. But for now, so far, with full spring preload on, the shocks like to have full compression as well, at least over the sharp edge, slow speed stuff. Next thing to do, take the preload back out to halfway on the springs, do everything over again, lowest settings again for compression. So we go in the same order. Compression damping all the way down to full soft. Ideally, over like pretty sharp bumps, you want to have a little bottoming built in. You don't want bottoming all the time. But over sharp bumps, your shocks are pretty much set correctly when you hit something pretty severe, and it'll get to the bottom. That way it's more comfortable through the rest of the thing. See what happens. Try another run. Wasn't too bad. I'd say it's better than the like the second run I did. Even a little more comfort than the first run I did with the full preload adjustment. I'll have to see how much it's bottomed out. I suspect over that last bump, especially coming this direction, you will see some bottoming out. But pay close attention to the wheel action in the front. You really want that front to follow the terrain as much as possible. which my prediction is these forks, compared to the new ones with rebound adjustment, are going to be horrible at. The new ones are going to be much better. Anyhow, now we go to 5 clicks out. So 1/3 compression damping, 1/2 preload reading. Felt pretty good. I don't know how that looked, but that felt really decent to me. It felt probably the best comfort out of any of the runs so far, and close to the best control. Those are kind of the two elements I'm striving to bring together, is comfort and control. Comfort was good on this one. Control was a little off. The front was trying to steer a little bit towards the end. Hard to keep me in a straight line, so I want to try and bring those close together. So now we have still compression at 1/2 preload. Spring preload at 1/2. Compression damping, we're going up 2/3 of the way, so that's 10 clicks out from full saw. No fair, I kind of drove out of orbit there. Trying to slow it down. There's going to be some interesting footage for me to analyze later, because in that direction, starting with this sharpest pump first, it seemed to me to be worse on control than the previous run, and worse on comfort. However, on the way back, it seemed to be wonderful in both of those regards. Compression preload, spring compression preload, still halfway point. Compression clickers on the bottom, we're going to go to full hard compression. 14 clicks out. Very good. Next variable to change. Spring preload. I am going to put the stock springs all the way out to their full soft setting, as far out as they'll screw, which I believe is 10.5 turns out. Okay? So really, as far as bottoming goes, with this spring preload on its lightest setting here, and the compression down to nothing, you should see a lot of bottoming out on this next run. And really the only question remains is, how is the rebound control of the power going back down so that it doesn't give me sort of a relaunched effect, but launching back up. So going back down to full stop on these. So now we have like no compression, or just whatever the default is at the lowest, and lightest spring preload. So front should be diving pretty easily. See how she rides. I don't know if you saw that last little turn there. The front end really wanted to swirl out. So from my perspective, on that run, I had good comfort, pretty good. Did seem to be bucking a bit more, but it seemed control was on the lower end. So, still with no preload on the springs. I'm going to now take the compression settings out to 5 clicks, 1/3 of the way. That run I felt perhaps a little bit of bucking, but really the best control so far. Second to the last test. Spring preload, nothing. Light as can be, all the way out. Compression, 2/3 of the way from full soft, so 1/3 of the way from full hard. 10 clicks out. So I felt the log kick out on that one. But what I'm noticing now, and perhaps the video will show it, perhaps it won't, is that now the front is starting to feel so good, so comfortable and in control, that my focus is now on the rear end. I believe I'm keeping my weight centered about the same, but I now feel the rear doing its action, kicking around more than the front. It tells me that once I get the front appropriately dialed in, I'll have to make the rear match. So for now, I like that run. It felt like my best one yet. Last possible combo to test is no spring preload on the lightest, compression adjustment full on, hard, all the way up, 14 clicks. Now this is starting to feel really good as I'm going up on the compression with the light preload. However, it may not be the best. Playing back this video, especially in slow motion, is going to help me to understand how close I am to bottoming out and therefore how stable that front end is. It may be that this feels really good to me with very low spring preload. However, it's not the best thing for the trail. I've got to take into consideration if this is bottoming or near bottoming with no spring preload on there, what's going to happen when I'm going downhill with the brakes on? May need to be a compromise. I don't have the hill course set up to do the same thing around here. I'm doing it on a flat. So take that into consideration. I will as well. But so far it's feeling really good without spring preload on it. Maybe the comfort factor seems a bit worse, but the control really seems pretty much like the best ball. I'm going to try and really just wail across this stuff, like either first gear all out, post all out, or like, you know, something along in second gear a little bit. I want to see what happens at a higher speed. Well, I didn't get thrown, so that's the most important thing. However, at a higher speed, you'll see these lugs behind me kick around a lot more, and I did a lot more bucking motion. I think in that case, the compression was working to my disadvantage. When I go back and look over this, I think it wasn't able to compress quickly enough, or on the other hand, the compression did do a job, but the rebound that's available out of these shocks just really sucked it. It was going back. I'll put in some descriptive text on what I think. You can go ahead and put in the comments what you think is happening and what you think about this test. What you predict is going to happen on the second video that I do with the new forks. And yeah, please feel free to subscribe, like, dislike, comment, whatever. Thanks very much for watching. This is Cheap-Ass BS signing off. Today, I now have the new forks set on. The way they're set is just like I saw someone on Thumper Talk had said, 12 clicks out, both on the top and the bottom. So the rebound setting and the compression setting, compression damper setting, are both set right now on 12 clicks out. I've also done some adjustment on the back. The back shock is now high speed compression, 3 turns out from full hard. The low speed compression, 15 turns out from full hard. And the rebound is 4 turns, or 4 clicks. So whenever I say turn, it only applies to the high speed nut. Everything else is clicks. So 4 clicks out from full hard rebound damper. And I've also upped the tire pressure. It's wicked cold out today. It's in the 20s. Front tire pressure back up to 18 pounds as stock should be. Rear tire pressure at about 22. We'll see what it looks like. Hopefully she's going to ride really good. You know, that's really very good, because being that it's so cold out now, the soil is harder, and you can see that the cinder block I have down there, that obstacle, I've lifted it back up. It was out of the ground. I'll be excited to see what this footage is going to look like. Things feel perhaps a little less comfortable, and I'm attributing a good deal of that to the tires being aired up at what I think is way too hard for trail work. But I'm going with what the factory says. Other than that, it felt like good control over everything, which this bike is cold. It's been outside in teens weather last night. Today only got up to the 20s. So this bike is freezing cold. The oil in the fork and the shock, freezing cold. Tires are hard. I think that did pretty well. I'm going to go back and forth over it a few times, then review the footage and see what it looks like the tire's doing. I'll try some different speeds too, why not? Yeah, always have bike in neutral for your friends. Now, the control was still there, but based on the amount of kicking of those logs flying up, and to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure if I flung part of the cinder block up or something at the end, but something kicked up right when I was hitting the last obstacle. I could feel it kicking like the swing arm. My thought is that these settings are too harsh on at least the compression side for slow woods work, slow enduro work. I won't even say enduro, slow woods work. In enduro race, I think they'd be awesome. Faster fire roads and stuff, I think they're going to be pretty good at. Just for fun, I'm going to try modifying this course. Just a couple of the smaller obstacles and see what happens. I'm going to keep the cinder block and get rid of the rock that's on the side of it. Let's see. Put a smaller piece of wood there. I'm going to put these two pieces of wood together, see if they can kind of stabilize each other. Bit of a softer ramp there. This one, put the flat side down, round side up, should stick better. And let's see, right here I'll do away with this piece of wood. Still kind of scared by that last cinder block there. That's kind of a steep up. Give it a shot, see what happens. I'm going to do away with the cinder block, and I'm going to space the wood out there. This looks nice. This is your average wood stuff right over.